What's going on? It's Half Off, and I love mill decks. Before, I've done a lot of mono blue mill decks, but this time I found a lot of really nice black cards that I think made it better than I've made mill decks before. So let's get into it. I wanted this deck to be really cost efficient, so it's made up of all 1, 2, and 3 cost spells. There are 29 blue cards, 8 black, 4 multicolored, and 23 lands. I mostly play standard ranked, so that's what this deck is made for. Now for card type, I have 14 creatures, 4 instants, 15 sorceries, 8 artifacts, 2 enchantments, and the lands are broken up between 15 islands and 4 swamps, but there's some more details to that, so we'll get into that more later. Now let's get into the details. I'm just going to go from the top of the list and go over why I put each of these cards in this deck and why they work well together. I'm going to start with the Merfolk Secretkeeper. Now, this is a perfect card for a mill deck, being that you have your adventure that costs 1 mana, and that will mill 4 cards. Then you also pay 1 more mana for a 4 defense creature. And so what's nice about this is sometimes you just want to mill some cards and you don't need the defense. And this gives you the option to kind of just have it there ready to go. You mill your cards and now you have your creature ready to go in for 1 more mana. Next on the list is the Ruined Crab. This costs 1 blue mana and mills 3 cards for each opponent every time you place a land. And this speaks for itself. This just gives you the constant mill, and they're gonna also want to spend their destroy spells and their attacks on trying to take out this constant mill source. So next on the list is the Bloodchief's Thirst. This costs 1 black mana, and this is so good for defense. So good. So having 4 of these, you can use your 1 mana, and this is gonna kill any 2 or less cost creatures, which is perfect. Clear out some cheap guys, but also you can use this to destroy any creature or planeswalker if you kick it. Now the kicker is going to cost 2 black mana, but this saves you so often when you have that pesky planeswalker, while also giving you the freedom to spend less on defense when you need to. Next is the good old Folio of Fancies. And I don't have to say much about this card, but we'll go over the details anyway. Players have no maximum hand size. Pay 2 of any mana and tap the card. Each player draws X cards, where X is the amount of mana you spent. 2 mana per card. The next is pay 2 of any color mana and 1 blue mana. Tap the card. Each opponent mills cards equal to the number of cards in their hand. We're going to go into a lot more details with how this works with other cards, which really makes its place in this deck. Next up, and at the core of this deck, is the Maddening Cacophony. Costs 1 color, any mana, 1 blue mana. This card is so amazing. For 2 mana, you can mill 8 cards. And with a kicker costing 3 of any color and 1 blue, you mill half, I say half, of their deck. So this is definitely a card we're going to want 4 in. And I forgot to mention, I'm using 4 Merfolk Secretkeeper, 4 Ruined Crab, 4 Bloodchief's Thirst, and 2 Folio of Fancies. I really try to just hone this deck down and use the cards that I need to. No fluff. Next up is Sweet Oblivion. 1 color, any mana, 1 blue mana. It's a sorcery. Target player mills 4 cards. Now, coming after the Maddening Cacophony, paying only 2 mana for 4 cards, obviously not as good, but what really brings this card to life is the escape. Pay 3 any color, 1 blue mana. Play this from your graveyard and exile 4 cards from your graveyard. I've put 3 of these in the deck, and this card works really good in junction with Teferi's Tutelage, which we'll get into later. Finally, onto some creatures. We have the Vantress Gargoyle. I have 2 of them in the deck. It costs 1 mana any color, 1 mana blue. It is flying. It is an artifact, but this card has a few tricks to it. Vantress Gargoyle cannot attack unless defending player has 7 or more cards in their graveyard. Vantress Gargoyle can't block unless you have 4 or more cards in your hand. Tap the card, each player mills a card. And now this is perfect. For 2 mana, you're getting a 5 attack creature with 4 health. And with a deck like this, you're going to have milled 7 or more cards in your first few turns. Now let's talk about another core card, Drown in the Loch. This is 1 blue mana, 1 black mana, multicolor spell. It's an instant. You can choose one. Counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. Or destroy target creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to number of cards in its controller's graveyard. Now, like I just said with the Vantress Gargoyle, there's not a cap to this. You're always going to have enough cards in their graveyard to use it on whatever you need to. Now, I've put 4 of these in the deck and I wish I could put more. I love this card. Next up, we have Teferi's Tutelage. It costs 2 of any color mana and 1 blue mana. It's an enchantment. When Teferi's Tutelage enters the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent mills 2 cards. And this card is where it all comes together. The reason I like to use Sweet Oblivion is I like to discard that card and then I can still use it. And then also, this goes in conjunction with the Folio of Fancies. If you get both of these cards down and you start drawing cards over and over, then you're milling 2 cards for each of those cards. It's game over. Or they're dropping everything they can, trying to take out Teferi's Tutelage or Folio of Fancies. Put that combo with a couple ruined crabs and you're milling them from every direction. Now some more creatures, which is super good for winning with attack or with defense. This is the Relic Golem. I have 3 of them in the deck. It is an artifact creature. Relic Golem can't attack or block unless an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Guess what? We already talked about that. Not an issue. Now guess what? You got a 6/6 creature that costs 3 mana, and what do they have? Like a 1/2 up? You're smashing them. Oh, and I forgot to mention, pay 2 mana, tap target, player mills 2 cards. That I kind of more just use if I have to play defense and I'll just spend that mana on their turn. This next card is what allows this deck to be so cost efficient. The Lullmage's Domination. I've got 4 of them in the deck, and how much it costs gets a little tricky, so let's try to get more into the details here. This is a sorcery, and this spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a creature whose controller has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Once again, not going to be an issue. Makes this card super cheap to cast. Gain control of target creature with converted mana cost X. Having 4 of them allows you to use it when you really need to, but it is nice to save it until the opponent plays that creature that they think they just won with. You play this card, they literally just quit the game. I mean, that's kind of a joke, but I can't tell you how many times that's actually happened. You literally just mill all the cards they want to play. They're finally able to play the card they want. You steal it off of their side, put it in your control, and literally just watch their soul leave their body. Now let's get into the lands. I have 11 basic blue lands in here, 4 basic swamp lands, 4 Clearwater Pathway / backside Murky Water Pathway, giving me the option for a black or blue land when I need it. Now to the land that really makes this deck flow, the Mystic Sanctuary. Mystic Sanctuary enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other islands. When Mystic Sanctuary enters the battlefield untapped, you may put target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library. Now, this works great when you're talking about the Maddening Cacophony, the Drown in the Loch, or Lullmage's Domination. You can keep replaying these highly controllable cards. You just completely shut them down, and you just keep pulling them out of your graveyard and playing them again. They just can't even handle it. Now that we've gone over the details of this deck, which I think was very important, let's get into a game. I'll show you how it really works. All right, time to get into a game. Let's see how this deck actually plays out. Pretty good 7 to start out with. I rarely have to mulligan with this deck. So get out the ruined crabs as soon as we can. Get those milling. There's a decent amount of lands in this deck, so that'll pull a lot. Already doing everything they can to keep those mill cards off of the board. Alright, there we go, our first 3 cards. They don't know what's coming. All right, this is getting a little bit scary. They have some flying creatures, but I'm ready for this. This is to be expected. Bam, there we go. Mill 6 more cards. Just like that, we're starting to knock them down. And sometimes with this deck, you gotta take a couple hits. Let them think they got you. And then you just jack their creatures. Oh, look at that pause. He's mad. Looks like that's all they've got is flying creatures. That's okay. Bam, there we go. 6 more cards down the drain. Oh, now we got Teferi's Tutelage coming out. GG. Say goodbye to all your cards, brother. Now, the reason I discarded a creature there is because though this deck has the capability to win through attack and chipping down health, you want to really focus on winning through milling the cards and playing defense. And I know that I'm going to gain more by milling their cards. Plus, I won't be able to do any blocking with the Relic Golem. At least not versus all of their flying creatures. And I'm never scared to just let one of my creatures like that die to bring down the chance they're going to be able to keep chipping me away through the air. As you can see, I'm milling cards way faster than he's damaging me. And there we go, there's 4 more cards. They don't have many left. I guess I'll throw in a little attack there. Maybe should have waited and spent the mana to actually mill 2 cards at the end of their turn. Looking back at this play, that would have been the right way to go, but I think it all works out anyway. Seriously, I don't think he has any creatures that aren't flying. The race is on. 9 cards, 9 health. Let's see who can do it faster. Here we go. 3 cards from the land. We'll bring Sweet Oblivion back from the graveyard. We'll be using that next turn for the win. Bring that card back. and it's game over. Unless they can somehow drop a haste creature or put a buff on one of their creatures. There's not really much left that they can do to win. Sometimes I'm not always sure if people even realize they're about to lose in this situation. Not out of lack of knowledge, just I don't think I've ever been beat by anybody else from being milled out. So there we go. Good game. Just like that. That's how you mill to a win. Just gotta focus on your end goal. Win by mill. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of opportunity to mill even faster had other cards come up, but even with what we were dealt, easy win with the mill. This may not be the most competitive deck at the highest levels, but I think it's very fun to play. And for me personally, this is my favorite style to win with. But if you see any additions that can make the deck better, or different ways you would have played these cards, just let me know in the comments. And hopefully this video was helpful and taught some of the newer players something. And if you are an experienced player, hopefully you can teach me something. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you want to see more of these mill decks.